Welcome to Stimulate Conversations, a sexual wellness business discussions podcast that supports the vast range of professionals supporting consumers from a business perspective within the sexual wellness space. My name is Nicole Lameck, your host, and the founder of Stimulate, a B2B sexual wellness trade show held annually in Nashville, as well as many other Stimulate experiences throughout the year. I'm also author of the book Retail 101 from McGraw-Hill and professor of retail marketing at Columbia, Chicago. From head to toe, young to mature, purpose to pleasure, Stimulate Conversations is committed to supporting sexual wellness professionals. Together with industry leaders as our guests, we look forward to delivering trusted and important conversations to help support retail, wholesale, spa, salon, and medical professionals who collectively want to help elevate and support their consumers within the sexual wellness community from an educated and professional perspective. Listeners of Stimulate Conversations can look forward to gaining expert-led insight from industry leaders, ranging from doctors to retail operational experts to industry visionaries and more. Without further ado, let's dive into Stimulate Conversations. Welcome to another edition of Stimulate Conversations. I am so thrilled to welcome Dr. Rachel Goodman today, who's going to be discussing menopause realities and ways to ease them. Welcome, Dr. Goodman.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so thrilled you're here. I want to kick this off by having you share a brief snapshot of your professional experience and how you have truly become such a respected expert in women's health.
Well, my name is Rachel Goodman, like you said, and I am a full spectrum OBGYN. I have been practicing for almost 10 years. And about a year ago, I decided to step back from being full-time OBGYN and shift my focus to this realm. So I'm focusing now. I opened a small clinic called Second Spring, and I am focusing on menopause, sexual function, and hormones.
Amazing. I love all of that. And I have a feeling we're already going to want to have multiple episodes with you. So kicking this off, I want to go ahead and dive into the question that so many of our listeners, and let's face it, women everywhere want to know. How do women ease menopause symptoms? I know that's a loaded question, but what's the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you that?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that there are such a range of symptoms that come along with menopause. And so there's not one thing in particular. Like every woman experiences menopause very differently. And so I think it's really important to women to recognize and be educated on what menopause can entail and then address each thing. I think oftentimes women will go to their doctor and maybe they're just presenting with decreased sleep and then they get treated for sleep. So I think that's one of the main things is that you can treat different areas of menopause symptoms differently. However, hormones is a way that once you actually recognize the diagnosis as menopause, I am a big fan of hormone replacement therapy when it's appropriate.
It makes sense. And I think, as a patient myself, we don't know what we don't know. So it's great having, experts like you that we can lean into and listen and learn from. And then, of course, our doctors. And so, keeping that in mind, I want to gain a broader understanding of how the human body works and more specifically, how the female body works. Can you expand on some ways of modern technology, products, services, you just mentioned hormone therapy as well, can help ease the discomforts or frustrations of menopause?
Sure. I mean, I think that menopause, as we get to the age of menopause, there is a very long or short period of perimenopausal symptoms before a woman actually enters menopause. I think a lot of women know, a lot of women don't know that once you actually don't stop bleeding and stop having your period for a full year, you are considered to be in menopause. But there's plenty of symptoms that can happen leading up to that. And so I think it is basically the ovaries and the whole body that is communicating with itself and to the ovaries. The brain communicates to the ovaries, and the ovaries stop producing estrogen and progesterone. And with that comes along a multitude of symptoms. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And I think that the symptoms vary. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so hard. And, with Stimulate, one of the things that we always try to do is we try to connect the right resources to the right places to discover either services or products or technologies or doctors for that matter too, that can help ease that. And so, one of the things that comes to mind is that while menopause is very, very challenging experience for many, there's a lot of resources available. We live in modern times, and yet it seems like it's taken forever to really advance the understanding of these resources, or possibly that's simply my naive understanding. What do you have to share in regards to where we're at right now? We're having this conversation in November of 2023 with where resources can be accessed.
I think that's a really important point. I think that while there is increasing awareness every day about menopause, there is still so much variation in information, and there's a huge controversy around it. I think that, and I can say this because after practicing OBGYN for almost 10 years, we OBGYNs are really not that well trained in menopause care. And I think that patients experience the frustration of going to their doctor, expecting them to know everything about it, and there being a lack of information or a lack of resources to address it. I can tell you, I'm sure if you've heard of or not, the Women's Health Initiative, which was a study back in the early 2000s. And that was a study that really wanted to, it was done very poorly. There was a lot of, it was hard to interpret the information, but basically the result was to take all women off hormones, and that hormones were bad and they cause cancer. And I think that we now are in a place that we have recognized why that study was so detrimental to women's health and made women suffer for so many years. And now that we understand that hormones are a lot safer in the right hands than we thought they were after that study. So I think that there's still plenty of providers and doctors and people that are not as up to date. And I think that was my real goal. It has been in the last year, is to dive head on into this and become as educated and as up to date as possible. And so I'm excited about where we can go, how much we can help women, and how much we do know now.
We're excited too. I mean, I think I'm speaking for myself and listeners when I say that, because personally, I had no idea about that study that you just mentioned. So, again, it's from my perspective, I am a consumer / patient. Yes, I work within the sexual wellness space, but I am not an OBGYN like you, right? So again, we don't know what we don't know. And with that in mind, our listeners are primarily B2B operators supporting consumers within sexual wellness, whether they identify as patients or customers. At the end of the day, they all respectfully want to help ease their patients or customers with their menopause challenges. So can you suggest any products specifically that you would recommend women experiencing menopause may benefit from using?
Yeah, absolutely. There are one thing I would like to say when you talk about different products is I would just like to preface by saying I'm a true believer in a holistic approach to health. So I don't think there's one way to do it. I think each individual can come in and then we can hit the different symptoms from different angles. One example is I'm using a product right now called the Cleovana, and that is uses sound wave therapy and shock wave. It's on the clitoris and the external vulva. It's not internal. It increases blood flow to the clitoris, and it can increase arousal and climax. It can also increase lubrication. One of the main complaints I get from menopause is vaginal dryness, and that might present itself as pain with intercourse. People might not know that's exactly what's happening, but usually during a patient visit, we can tease that out pretty quickly. That's one of them. Platelet-rich plasma, which people have probably heard a ton of and about. And that's usually used maybe in the joints and orthopedic situations. However, we can apply that also around the clitoris and around the vagina to increase lubrication, increase arousal. There are vaginal lasers out there. I personally don't have one yet. I'm excited. I would love to get one in the future, but I've had patients that have had those treatments and have had some really good effects from them. Hormone treatments, and then there's a variety of different products, especially here. I've been meeting with a lot of different providers in town, whether it's I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so we have products such as CBD products, specifically formulated for menopause that use a really high quality plant-based and CBD products. Also, whether it is acupuncture, herbs, supplements, diet, lifestyle changes, those are all things that I think can be really beneficial to help.
So it sounds like a combination is actually effective. Like it's not always just a one and done, but often it takes multiple things to really individually help someone get to where they may want to be in that menopause journey.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. That's what I mean by, a true holistic approach, and you hit it from all different angles.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one of the things I love most about learning new things, such as everything you've just shared, is helping to then share that amazing wisdom with others. And so for our listeners, I know many of them are going to want to keep insight moving forward. What resources would you suggest those looking to gain more insight on what you've shared today? And of course, how to stay in touch with you?
Well, I think first and foremost, finding a provider that is really up to date and really open to all of the different resources that are available in your area, it would be great. There is the North American Menopause Society, which does support hormone use. There are, um, I think podcasts like yours are wonderful, and I think finding ways to really reach out and listen is great. There's some other podcasts that I think are wonderful. There's our doctors that are delving into this and educating people. There's a wonderful doctor, Dr. Peter Attia, that has a great interview with the woman who was a principal investigator on the Women's Health Initiative. I actually have a lot of patients listen to that to help ease their fears over what they think might be severe side effects from hormones, and it really helps a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing for sure. And I do want to switch gears just a little bit because a lot of our listeners work within that consumer environment, not patient environment. So if you could offer them advice on how to better communicate to their customers, because they're the frontline engagement of many individuals who are first taking steps to say, hey, I'm going through menopause. Maybe it's the arousal that they're hoping to improve. Maybe it's lubrication from vaginal dryness. What advice can you give to those professionals really aiming to communicate more effectively to their menopause customers?
Well, I think that first thing is to recognize what exactly the symptoms are. I think when you just say menopause, I think that alone is very broad, and that might not hit a lot of women, and knowing that that's what they're experiencing. So, listing the different symptoms of menopause, I think, is really helpful. So, you might say brain fog, irritability, a decrease in patience, maybe with their family members, their loved ones, harder to focus at work. Decreased sleep is huge. The sleep issue is a main complaint that I hear, and then decreased libido, vaginal dryness, pain with intercourse. We talked about hot flashes, of course, are high on the list. All of those, and then weight gain, decreased motivation. These are all things that can really go along with menopause. So I think focusing on some of those individual symptoms are going to hit women a little bit more. They might read a list of symptoms and say, oh, actually, I am experiencing that, versus just maybe it's menopause, maybe it's not.
Right, absolutely. That makes sense. And for sure, many of us are not in that position or of understanding what we need to know. So it's so grateful for us to have you to learn from today. And with that, I want to make sure that we ask you a few of our favorite rapid fire questions for you. It's something we do always here at Stimulate Conversations. So I'm going to ask you a few questions and you can simply reply with a quick few words only answers. That would be amazing. So I'll kick
Great.
it off with the first one. What does sexual wellness mean to you?
It means whatever the patient wants it to mean. So every woman's going to have their own goals, and it means that patient meeting their goals to their fullest.
And how do you define good customer service or care?
Listening, I think that's number one.
And what keeps you personally inspired?
I mean, really, the patients. I love sitting and talking to patients. I love hearing their stories, and it's so rewarding to be able to get to actually see results.
And what about professionally inspired?
I mean, this keeps me professionally inspired. It was switching gears and focusing on an issue that was really unaddressed prior to this, or prior, in the last few years. And it feels really exciting. It feels cutting edge, and it feels like, there's a lot of room for movement and upward movement.
And I love that, by the way. And what advice would you offer for business leaders in general within the sexual wellness category, of course?
I would say, just go for it. Trial and error. I mean, one of the things I had prior to starting this was not as much experience. And as I've delved in and have more and more patients, you just learn more and more from every single patient. So I would just say, take the plunge into it and learn from each patient. Pay attention.
I couldn't agree more. You got to just take that plunge, right? So that's what together we're doing here at Stimulate Conversations today and always at Stimulate. So thank you so much for your wisdom today, for your insight. I do want to reinforce any ways that they might be able to get in touch with you. So if there's any sort of handles, web pages, anything you'd like to share, if you could do that now, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. My website is www.secondspringmd.com. And that's probably the best way to get hold of me.
Great. Well,
or actually, you could email me as well on hello@secondspringmd.com as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And to those of you who have tuned in today, thank you as well.
Thanks, Nicole.
Stimulate Conversations offers year-round ways to stay in touch between our podcasts, including a private Facebook community for ongoing and more in-depth discussions, which you can find via Facebook at the group name Stimulate, Sexual Wellness Business Discussions. You can also stay connected via Instagram at the handle Stimulate the Show. And you're welcome to email us at stimulate@retailminded.com. I'm Nicole Leinbach, founder of Stimulate and your host. And together with the entire Stimulate team, we look forward to continued discussions that will, you guessed it, keep you stimulated on the business of sexual wellness. Till next time, stay stimulated.